Welcome to video number 2 in the nCloth demo, and today what I'm going to show you is how to make a flag, and we're going to add a few physics objects to the scene to make the flag look like it is blowing in the wind. So we're going to now go up to File, and we're going to start a new scene since we're going to use the same project that we were already working in. I'm going to hit Save. And now I'm going to save this as File, Save Scene As, and you can see that it now goes under my same project. And I'm going to call this my, actually I'm going to call this my nCloth flag. Alright, so it's pretty basic. We're just using some basic shapes. And in this case, we're going to start with a plane. Go back to my poly modeling and start with a plane. And I'm going to rescale it, make it a little bigger. So I have something to start with. And then I am now going to go ahead and rotate this way. Pull it out just a little bit to make it look like a flag. So now I have a rectangle, and what I want to do is take that rectangle and rotate it up on my x-axis. It may be on your z-axis depending on which direction you started your flag out. And I'm going to pull it up out of the grid just a little bit so I don't have my grid in the way. And I'm going to start off with assigning a material. So again, with your right mouse button, hold it down and go to Assign New Material. Select an Arnold, AI Standard Surface, and in our standard surface over here in our Attributes Editor, if you don't have it up, you can select the Attribute Editor here, or it's this button up here if it's not even on your side channel. And then under base, make sure it's under base, not under specular. You want it under base. Select the little checkered flag, then File, go back to your Attributes Editor for the Manila folder, and then select your image that you want to use for your flag, and then hit 6 on your keyboard if it doesn't automatically show up. And we're not quite done, because if I hit play again, nothing happens. We need to still give it some nCache, or nCloth rather, behaviors, and then we also need to give it a flagpole to stick it to. So first, let's go to our FX again, select nCloth, and then create nCloth. First, you have to select the flag. And before we do that, I can see that what I want to do probably is give it some more subdivisions. Right now it's only 10 by 10. So I'm going to give it 30 by 30 to make sure I have plenty of subdivisions so that it has plenty of surface area to move. And now I'm going to go ahead and go to nCloth and create nCloth. And the object is now set up as a nCloth object. If I hit play, it just falls right off the screen. We have to have something for it to hang to. Remember, with the tablecloth demonstration, it just fell right through the table until we had a passive collider, something that it couldn't fall through. But in this case, we don't want to put the flag on top of anything. We want it to hang from a flagpole. So let's go ahead and create the flagpole. I'm going to use a cylinder. I'm going to line it up over the side, and then I'm going to use my R key for scale, and I'm going to scale it up, give it some height, and then I'm also going to rotate from the top view and use the plane to shrink it down a little bit evenly on that axis so that it looks like about like a flagpole. Then I'm going to move it close to my flag, scale is a little off. Scale it down just a little bit more. Get close again. That's probably good right there. You can see that I have quite a reflection on my flag. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get everything all set up before we do our constraints. So I'm going to go back to my flag, and I'm going to select my surface area, and I'm going to use my roughness under specular. Again, use that slider, and I'm going to move it up until I have the reflection go away. I want more of a cloth appearance, so I'm going to make it pretty rough. Okay, now select the flagpole again. It should be highlighted green. If it's not, go to right click and hold and go to your object mode. Make sure you're in object mode. Hold your shift button down, right click the mouse button and hold it until you get this menu, and then we want to select insert edge loop. We're going to put a few edge loops into this flagpole to give us an area for our flag to hang from. A couple up at the top, and then a couple down towards the bottom of the flag area. Let's see. Kind of space them out evenly. Don't think I liked where I put those. Let's try this again. There. Something like that. Not quite even as far as the size between the two are. That's better. Alright, so now hit Q on the keyboard once you have 2 loops at the top and 2 loops at the bottom, and hit Q to quit the tool. And now we're going to right click and hold, and we're going to select face mode. And if you click on one face and then right next to it hold the shift button and double click, it'll select that entire row. And then we're going to do the same for the top. If you hold the shift button and select one and then double click right next to it, you can see that you also selected that entire row. So we have both sets of rows, and we're going to indent these a little bit. So I'm going to use Control E, and then using the red square, you see that you have the arrows and then there's some squares at the end. If I zoom in a little bit, you can see it better on the tool. And then if I hover over it and click and select it, if I drag it in, it evenly makes it go inward so that it gives it this inset. And you can see that by selecting both sets at the same time, they're all inset. Okay. Hit Q again to quit the tool. And now right click, go back to object mode. And we're going to use a torus for the next piece. So select the torus, and we're going to move it up into place. Hit W on your keyboard, slide it over. And under the torus, under the attribute editor, you'll see under the poly torus 1, you'll have radius and section radius. This radius I'm going to set to 0.95, and this bottom radius I'm going to set to 0.15, and it gives me this nice little ring. I'm feeling that maybe just a little too big still. I move it around. I think it is a little bit too big, so the outer radius I'm going to change to 0.9. And I'm just going to play with it until it looks right. The size of your flag is going to determine the size of your ring here. And then using the R key, I'm going to narrow it in just a little bit, give it more of a tension appearance, and pull this back just a little bit so it looks like it's hanging on like that. And once I'm happy with it, I think that's okay, I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to assign it a new material. Select Arnold, Arnold Standard Surface, And I'm just going to give it a metallic looking color. I'm going to go with a darker color for the chain, and I'm going to slide the metalness up a little bit on that. And then Control D to duplicate it and slide it up to the upper one. I think that's probably okay. On the flagpole, I'm going to also give it a surface, assign new material, Arnold shader, AI standard surface, and I'm going to give this a lighter gray color in an attempt to make it look more like aluminum. And I'm going to slide the metalness up a little bit on that as well. And now we have what looks like a flagpole, but again, if we hit play, our flag just falls off. So now make sure we save it, and what we're going to do is we're going to select the flag again, and this time I'm going to go to vertex. I'm going to select the top 4 so that they're around the ring, and I'm going to select the bottom 4 so they're also around the ring. I'll still hold the shift button, and then I'm going to hold the shift button and select the flagpole, and up here under End Constraints I'm going to select End Constraint, and I'm going to do Point to Surface. And that should connect our flagpole to the flag. And when I hit play, you'll see that it does. The flag falls. We have a little bit of a problem though. The flag actually falls through the flagpole. So like last time with the table, we need to set up a passive collider. So select the flagpole, make sure it's green, go to nCloth, and create passive collider. Now when we hit play, you'll see that the flag falls, but it just rests up against the flagpole. We also need to do the same thing for the rings because it's passing through the rings. So let's go ahead and select the rings and create passive collider. So now when we hit play, it won't pass through the rings either. Okay, so we're pretty much set. Now let's go ahead and add some forces to the flag. We want to do that by selecting the nucleus. And the nucleus, when we select the nucleus over here under our outliner, if you don't have your outliner in the dock like I do, go to Windows and then select Outliner, and it will open up and it will look like this. And just do a little housekeeping here real quick. I'm going to double click on the plane and change that to my flag. On the toruses, I'm going to call these chain and chain. And then the cylinder is the flagpole. Okay. So when we select the nucleus, we see that we have some options show up here. And down here under gravity and wind, under nucleus 1, we have gravity, gravity direction. Don't mess with those. We're going to leave those alone. We are going to leave air density alone initially, and then we're going to bump wind speed up to maybe around 4 or 5. Leave wind direction alone and wind noise alone, and let's hit play and see what happens. And as you can see, it falls. Starts to blow just a little bit. So let's go ahead and give ourselves some frames to play around with. I'm going to change mine to 500. I'm going to hit play again. You can see that the flag does, after the initial gravity fall, start to flow just a little bit. I want it to stick up just a little bit more so I can add more wind speed to it. and I start to get a little bit more and more error. Maybe move my air density up just a little bit, give the air a little bit more weight. The flag starts to fly, so I'm going to slow it down just a little bit. Just kind of play around with these numbers until you get a look that you like. And then one thing we might want to add to this is some noise, because we don't want a consistent amount of air constantly moving. We want to add some fluctuation. So by adding noise, we can get a little bit more of a natural airflow. And as you can see, the flag starts to flutter just like that. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with that right now. I'm going to hit stop right there. It kind of gives me a little bit of a look that the flag is flying. I'm going to maybe slide it down just a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to now add a light to it, and I'm going to see how this looks. Like that. Slide this over. So you can kind of play around with the way the flag is angled. More of a look to it. We probably could have done a little bit more with the flagpole, but it's not too bad, and the rings are a little big. But from here, I think that looks pretty decent. And now what we can do is we could render this, and after I render it, I'm going to go ahead and render it out for about 300 frames. I don't want to put a lot on it, and we'll see how that looks. So I'm going to go ahead and pause you right now. Actually, first I'm going to walk you through the process to render it. Have everything set up the way I want it to look. Turn my grid off. Not that it matters, but it bugs me. And now I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go into my animation. So click the down arrow. Under rendering, go to render, your render settings, and you'll end up with this window up. I'm going to change the image format. I'm going to first check to make sure that my path is going to where I want it to go, my nCloth demos images, and I'm going to select a PNG for this. Since this is going to be multiple frames, I am going to select name, hashtag, and extension .ext. I'm going to skip my first few frames because if you remember from the animation, if I go back to the beginning, remember how the animation kind of drops a little bit first with the gravity, and then it takes off as it starts to fly. So I'm going to pick up somewhere around, so put 25 here. And then my ending animation, I'm going to end at 325. Just give myself 300 frames for the flag to fly. I'm not going to change the camera, still using perspective camera, and I'm going to push this up a little bit to an HD 1080. I'm going to leave everything else alone. And now up here under the render, I'm going to select render sequence. The little box there just to double check myself, make sure everything's good, and then I'm going to do render sequence and close, and it should start rendering. If I have everything set up right, we should see this similar image, and it is set up. So now I'm going to pause. After I'm done rendering, I will come back and we will finish. Okay, well, welcome back after the rendering process. It may have taken you anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes. And you can see that that window closed. The render view is still open, and you can see the render view of my flag there. We can close this, and now if I go into the actual folder where I saved this and I go into my project folder and nCloth demos, and we'll find that it's under the images. And here you can see that I have my images, and if I drag it open, these will be the images that we would use to create our video. So that's pretty much it for this. I'll go ahead and let you make the video on your own, but you now have the process to be able to make a nCloth flag. Alright, thank you, and I'll talk to you soon.